So as we move well into the midpoint of the tribulation, what purpose is the test? Is to test the earth dwellers. Their true colors come to the fore as the man that causes some to faint and all adore comes on the scene. During the second half of the tribulation, the beast or Antichrist takes his place in the temple of God in order to declare himself to be God, 2 Thessalonians 2:4, and requires that everyone receive the mark of the beast or be killed. See, God during the age of grace uses persuasion of the Word and the Holy Spirit. This guy has to force it on penalty of death to take the mark of the beast. Just shows a little difference between the way God and Satan work. In this passage, we see that every single earth dweller will worship the beast by taking his mark. The most significant statement about the earth dwellers, notes Osborne, is that their name has not been written in the book of life. The grammar switches from the plural, those who inhabit the earth, to the singular relative pronoun, I guess I'm got a gap here in my paper. Pronoun to stress that not one single person among the earth dwellers is named in the Lamb's Book of Life. Thomas links this passage with Matthew 24:24, which speaks of misleading the elect Jewish believers if possible. It is not possible. It appears that Revelation 13:8 cites as the reason why not a single earth dweller will ever come to faith in Jesus is because none of them are elect from the foundation of the world. Some note that the temporal clause from the foundation of the world in the original appears at the end of the sentence and best modifies the phrase, the Lamb who has been slain. However, as Bill suggests, it is so that a further description may be given to the book of life. Even if one were to attribute the temporal clause to the Lamb in this passage, 17:8 indisputably ascribes the same clause to the book of life. In other words, it repeats it there, clearly as referring to those whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the earth, of the world. Thus, either way, pretemporal election appears to be taught in Revelation. Why? Again, Bill notes, genuine believers have assurance that their souls can weather any satanic storm because of the safety accorded by the Lamb's book. Rather than leading to a fatalistic attitude, as someone suggests, this passage produces confidence that a believer can face any circumstance, including the second half of the tribulation, knowing that God has secured his eternal destiny. In the sovereignty and omniscience of God, many things were determined and accomplished before or from the foundation of the world, notes Garland. It appears that verses 9 and 10 support the notion of pretemporal election of verse 8. If anyone has an ear, let him hear. If anyone is destined for captivity, to captivity he goes. If anyone kills with the sword he must be killed. Here is the perseverance in the faith of the saints. Those who take the mark of the beast are rendered unsavable, even before they die. The last half of the tribulation is a unique period in all of human history. Humanity will be polarized into earth dwellers, unbelievers, and heaven dwellers, believers. In fact, Revelation 13:6 speaks of believers as those who dwell in heaven. There it is, Revelation 13:6, those who dwell in heaven. In other words, we're sojourning on the earth, but we're going to dwell in heaven, which is juxtaposed to the earth dwellers 2 verses later. The New Testament, on a number of occasions, tells us that the believer's citizenship is in heaven. Revelation 13:12, this passage shifts from speaking of the beast or Antichrist in the first half of chapter 13 to a section on the false prophet. And he exercises all authority of the first beast in his present, and he makes the earth and those who dwell on it to worship the first beast, whose fatal wound was healed. The false prophet comes up out of the earth, so it is that he makes the earth and the earth dwellers to worship the first beast or Antichrist. How does he make them worship the first beast? He does it because he receives the authority of the beast, but only in his presence. Isn't that interesting? It is important to note that the normal term for earth dwellers is not used in this verse. Instead, a similar but different term is used. In this verse, we see that See, one that places the earth in an emphatic position. This is a Hebrew figure of speech, is a pleonasm or redundancy to speak of all the earth's inhabitants. The expression here speaks more broadly of all earth inhabitants, notes Robert Thomas. The earth and those that dwell in them are the constituents of the beast. Revelation 13:14. Continuing in the section on the beast and the false prophet, John provides added information about the unbelief of the earth dwellers. The unbelief of the earth dwellers is conveyed via deception, and he deceives those who dwell on the earth because of the signs which are given him to perform in the presence of the beast, telling those who dwell upon the earth to make an image to the beast who had the wound of the sword and has now come to life. So to make an image of the beast is a clear reference to idolatry, is it not? Verse 12 says that the false prophet makes all the earth dwellers worship the beast or Antichrist. Verse 14 tells us that it is through the deception of signs that the earth dwellers are made to follow the beast. One of the most compelling false miracles put forth is the rising from the dead of the beast or Antichrist. You know, last year we had a guy from Master's Seminary present his doctoral dissertation results showing that why he believes that the Antichrist is actually going to be killed and resurrected, and shows when you combine that with 2 Thessalonians 2 that God will send them a strong delusion. It's very possible that God will raise him from the dead, because Satan can't do that. But God is giving them over, you see, to this, and so gives them temporary power to do this stuff. And that's what the text seems to be saying, and we're supposed to let the text tell us what, you know. The earth dwellers are being tested, and it is because they love not the truth, 2 Thessalonians 2, that they reject the message of salvation. It always gets back to the Word of God, your response to the Word of God. We see the same thing spoken by Paul in 2 Thessalonians 2, 9 through 12. The one whose coming is in accordance with the activity of Satan, with all power and signs and false wonders, and with all deception of wickedness for those who perish. See, that's going to be the earth dwellers there, back in Revelation, because they did not receive the love of the truth so as to be saved. And for this reason, God will send upon them a deluding influence. See, God's going to be doing that, so that they might believe what is false, in order that they may all be judged. This is Paul's interpretation, 2 Thessalonians 2, of the tribulation here. It parallels the book of Revelation nicely. Who did not believe the truth, but took pleasure in wickedness. Here we have a proactive statement that God is sending them a strong deluding influence, which in context are the false signs and wonders. In other words, as Revelation 13:14 says, they will be deceived. And then 14:16 says this angelic announcement will occur right before the middle of the tribulation, just before the beast goes into the Jewish temple and declares to the world that he is God and must be worshipped. And I saw another angel flying in the mid-heaven, having an eternal gospel to preach to those who live on the earth. So he's specifically targeting them, to every nation and tribe and tongue and people. Thus it is that every last earth dweller is warned about the consequences of rejecting the Lamb and taking the mark of the beast right before the beast requires the mark. The text says every earth dweller will receive this warning. I do not know how it will occur. You know, it says he's going to announce it. I don't know how it works with all the different languages or what, but I believe it will, just like this passage says. The earth dwellers are said to reside in every nation and tribe and tongue and people. This passage describes the ultimate test for the earth dwellers, which are you going to believe or reject the gospel? This is the greatest test that any individual can be challenged with, and every single earth dweller will reject the gospel in this at this time today. Today we don't know. That's why we preach it to everybody. Even these people who reject it are having it preached to them. Because of their rejection of the provision of the Lamb, God will have been vindicated in history as one who gave so many a real opportunity to believe the gospel, yet so many will fail to reach out. A key purpose of the time of testing is to turn those who will be turned to salvation and to manifest those who are hardened and will continue to reject it. So Revelation 17:8, the last reference, says, "The beast that you saw was and is not, and is about to come up out of the abyss and go to destruction. And those who dwell on the earth will wander." Yeah, study that word "wander" sometime. It's not part of my paper, but interesting word there. I think it could very well could be used about people who marveled about Christ in the New Testament. So here, there's a similar wondering or marveling after the beast, whose name has not been written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, when they see the beast that he was and is not and will come. In this passage, the earth dwellers will wonder after the beast. The future passage of the word "they will be marveling" carries the idea of amazement about the deeds of the beast, namely his recovery from a deadly wound. Bill tells us that wonder has the idea of an admirer in a worshipful sense, as it is apparent in 13:3 and following. Osborne connects their wonder to the counterfeit resurrection, and the wonder leads to worship. Thus, this instance provides further evidence that the earth dwellers' devotion is directed away from the Lord and toward the demonic. Their final reference provides one last piece of evidence that the earth dwellers will justly be condemned to the lake of fire for all eternity. They marvel at the accomplishments of the beast instead of what the Lamb has done. It is the beast who comes up out of the abyss, which is the abode of the demonic, that the earth dwellers love instead of the Lamb of God who comes down from heaven. This passage, as in 13:8, conveys a predestinarian intent with the use of the perfect passive word for to write. The text is not saying, notes Garland, that their names are not presently found in the book of life, as if they were at one time but were later blotted out. In the foreknowledge and election of God, their names were never recorded there. As this points out in the future, what was determined pretemporally will unfold in history. So I'm going to skip to the conclusion. It is clear that the Bible views earth dwellers in its eschatological use as those persistent unbelievers during the tribulation who, come hell or high water, will not place their faith in Jesus Christ, the Lamb of God, no matter how clearly God's plan of salvation is presented. In fact, the more the earth dwellers resist, the greater the hardship they endure as the wrath of God is poured out upon them in ever-increasing degrees. Rather than looking to God, who dwells in the heaven and runs the universe from above, their focus is upon the beast or the Antichrist who arises from the sea. A whole theology of the earth dwellers illustrates God's purpose for the tribulation, and the fact that God alone, with a few other things, is demonstrating in history that no matter what can be done to display the veracity of the gospel, many will turn away from the truth and not only follow a lie but delight in it. We are still living in the age of grace, or the church age, when the gospel is being preached to all nations and many are trusting Christ as their Savior. Yet we also see anti-Christianity on display as never before, going from bad to worse with each passing year. It is not hard to envision where society now is, how quickly conditions will degenerate into the scenario outlined in the Bible's prophetic literature. Thus, it is important in our age to know how obstinate and persistent unbelief can be. Thank you.